In Max Lucado's book, Eye of the Storm, he tells the story about Chippy and how Chippy never saw it coming. Welcome to the 2020 New Testament Challenge. Chippy was a parakeet, and one day his owner decided to clean out the cage, and so he got a vacuum cleaner. As he started to clean out the cage, the phone rang. The owner turned to see what the caller ID was, and as soon as he did, he heard a sound, and he knew exactly what that sound was. He immediately turned off the vacuum cleaner, opened it up, and there was Chippy, covered in dust. He took Chippy over to the sink and put him under the faucet to wash all of that dust off, and then he realized how wet and shivering Chippy was, so he took him to the bathroom and got the hair dryer out to dry him off. Later, someone asked, well, how Chippy was doing, and he said, he doesn't sing a lot anymore, he just sits and stares. Life can be just like that sometimes, can't it? We can become so overwhelmed with all that's happened to us or what we're going through that we just sometimes want to sit and stare. Paul is going to be talking about burdens here in Galatians chapter 6. And in these first 5 verses, he's going to talk about 2 ways to handle burdens. Listen to what he says beginning in verse 1. Brothers, if someone is caught in a sin, you who are spiritual should restore him gently, but watch yourself, or you too may be tempted. Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. If anyone thinks that he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. Each one should test his own actions. Then he can take pride in himself without comparing himself to someone else. For each one should carry his own load. Burdens can come in many different ways. There can be spiritual burdens, where we're burdened for someone's spiritual life. They're involved in sin, or they don't even know the Lord, and our hearts are burdened for them. We can have a burden physically. There can be emotional burdens, depression, anxiety, heartache, or loss. There can be financial burdens that we face as well. All of these can sometimes be overwhelming. And so here Paul is saying sometimes we need to be sharing our burdens with others. Sometimes we need to shoulder those burdens, but the truth is that we need to shed those burdens as well. What does it mean to share your burden? Here, Paul is saying, if you see someone caught in a sin, restore that person gently, but be careful that you're not caught up in it as well. But then he said, as you are sharing and carrying someone else's burdens, you're fulfilling the law of Christ. In 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 4, Paul said this, we should be comforting others with the same comfort that we have received, and the comfort that we have received, so with that same comfort, comfort someone else. As God has been faithful to us and he's helped us with that same comfort, we need to be helping someone else. When we see someone going through grief or sorrow, when we see someone who has a failure and we see their faults, we know that we are no different. We have our own faults and failures as well. But because God has blessed us, because God has ministered to us, we need to help someone else as well. We need to carry someone else's burden and share with them the truth of how they can overcome that burden that they're facing. Also, we need to shoulder our burden sometimes. Paul said, for each one should carry his own load. What does that mean? It means that we need to take responsibility for ourselves. Don't compare yourself with someone else, and don't blame someone else. That was the very first thing that Adam and Eve found themselves doing in the book of Genesis. What did Adam do? He blamed Eve. What did Eve do? She blamed the serpent. We don't need to blame someone else. We need to take responsibility for our own actions. We need to take responsibility for our own sin. But then, no matter what the burden is, we need to shed that burden at the foot of the cross. We need to give that burden to the Lord. Why? Because this is what God's word says. In Psalm 55:22, cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous fall. In 1 Peter 5:7, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. And then this is what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. Come to me, all you are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Jesus is our burden bearer. No matter what the burden is that you're carrying today, share that so that then someone else can come alongside you. You are not alone. But then shed it as well at the foot of the cross. Give it to Jesus, and then he will help us through no matter what it is. Jesus, again, is our burden bearer. Cast all your care upon him because he cares for you. Thank you for joining the 2020 New Testament Challenge.